This one's going to be a tough one. Out of all the videos I posted to this channel, this has definitely been the hardest one to record. I want to say everything right, but I told myself I'm not going to back down from any topic. I want to give you my real thoughts, my views on the world, because if I don't, then anything else I say is not credible. Welcome back to the channel. Tune in or go stout. The topic of the day that has me so nervous walking on eggshells is the rise of nationalism. With the rise of conservative values all throughout Western countries, conversations that were once dismissed in the past are being had today, and it shows how deep the division in the world truly goes. We are really living in some historic times. At the moment of me recording this, it is September 8th, and the French government has just collapsed due to economic instability, but mainly mass immigration. And it's not just France. Countries all over the EU are facing the same problem, and even us in the US are looking at the same issues. With a stagnant economy, inflation back on the rise, and no end in sight, politicians are using this intense political climate to advance their messages, no matter how divisive or destructive it is. The reason I have a hard time making this video is because I was not born in the country that I live in currently. I am an Ethiopian immigrant turned American citizen. I came in this country in 2005 and I became a citizen in 2015. While I have much love for my birthland, my life has been American. But even somebody of immigrant background, I can see that we have a problem in this country. And this problem has been brewing for a long time. I remember when I came to the country, when I went to school in Chicago, they used to call this country a melting pot. But at some point in the political dialogue, that became offensive. The constant nitpicking and involvement in politics into everyday life made the social fabric that held countries together tear at the seams. While I don't think my perspective is any more special than anyone else's, I think it gives me a unique look at the problem we're facing today. When many people hear the word nationalism, they automatically default to racism. But as the polls, the reports, and the voting statistics show, that's not really true. I think the media has a problem of dumbing everything down to a simple cause and effect, and that has been holding the American dialogue back for a long time. As somebody of African descent, when I came to this country, I accepted the fact that people like Nick Fuentes could say whatever they want about anybody. But in the same heartbeat, somebody like Bernie Sanders can also say what they want. The idea of freedom of speech and letting the best ideas win is something that I always found amazing about America. Growing up, I always viewed America as a country who let people have freedoms, but also made group decisions for the betterment of the people to advance us forward. But as I've grown up and seen the American system become monetized and weaponized against the people, the more I've realized it just goes to the biggest bidder. After World War II, there was a real incentive to get the American people energetic about life again and give them a new lease on it. That led to one of the most prosperous times of economic growth for any generation. But at some point, corporations started taking advantage. Decades of putting up walls, telling lies, and lobbying to keep the American people out of the decision room has led to stagnant wages, angry people, and economic times that are bleak. Instead of addressing the problem and taking fault, governments across the world are pointing fingers. And that's not me saying that immigration is not a problem, but to place all the fault on the foreign worker instead of the politician is giving them a break that they don't deserve. Many politicians that were selling out their countries for decades have now changed their stance to accommodate the right-wing rise. Like, there is truly an epidemic of grifters that end up just repeating whatever Nick Fuentes says. And the reason that's so effective is because people across the aisle do have a problem with immigration. Just the other day in my state of Georgia, 450 people were arrested at the Hyundai car plant. And Americans think that we have a Mexican illegal immigration problem, but most of the 450 people arrested at that Hyundai plant were South Korean. Instead of addressing the real problems, media wants to constantly make it a race-baiting issue. Instead of asking, why are these employers allowed to hire people that don't have documentation to be here? Why are employers constantly aiming to pay people less wages so they go after people who are undocumented? To pretend like businesses and economies don't prey on these people is to be willingly ignorant to the system playing in your face. Politicians, instead of taking accountability for the laws and bills they passed, putting us in the current situation we're in right now, would rather deflect and gaslight and push blame onto millions of people who have no power and are poorer than most Americans in this country. The immigration or the refugee problem is a kind of hard one to tackle, because while we get mad at our neighbor because of the effects of what immigration and refugees do to the population that they enter, we don't ever point fingers at the cause. We're too busy arguing and fighting ourselves to look at the puppet masters controlling everything, but the only reason that they're able to have this much control is because some of the things they say, as much as I hate to admit, are true. I want to focus in on France here. One thing that particularly scares me about what's going on in France is the state of Paris. Many people have documented how Paris is very unsafe and there's not many people who are actually from Paris there. This actually is a mix of mass migration and refugees and high tourist population. As much as we want to help people, the same issues are being seen across the ocean. Hospitality and sympathy only go so far. I think people across the world have been giving this experiment a try, a real try. But even in the 2010s, this problem was a strain on many countries' economies, and citizens across the globe were trying to speak up to their governments and let them know about this problem that was looming right around the corner. But instead, politicians doubled down, pushed insane policies, and told the citizens that they should not speak up about anything. Who would have thought decades of treating the average citizen like a child would backfire? The number one thing I think media across the world did wrong when handling this topic was the way that they would always talk down on the culture of the country that was being migrated into. Like the French people discussed this in the collapse meeting. People were tired of being villainized for having pride for their country or where they were born, instead being told that they should let the identity change without fighting back. Which, when you say that, just sounds like you're asking for riots to break out. I don't think violence is the answer, and I really do think discourse and civility wins and leads to better alternatives. But to be faced with a problem of this magnitude and just look at one side and point fingers seems very unhelpful. A lot of right-wing people do not like me, for the simple fact that I am an immigrant myself. While I know that, and it kinda does bother me in some weird way, to place the blame on right-wing politics or nationalism would be unfair of me. What I've gained from a lot of the arguments that come from that side is that it's not necessarily the fact that there's people of different races in the country, it's the assimilation factor. People are coming into these countries and not wanting to join the culture and boost it. Instead, they just bring their different values and implant it without trying to adjust to the world around them. Which I understand we have to respect everybody's culture, but this goes back to the social fabric thing I was talking about earlier. When I came to this country as an Orthodox Christian, I was not Catholic in faith, and many of the things that Americans do, my family does not participate in, but I also never felt the need to change it. Far-right activists cite things like the death of Merry Christmas and the canceling of every political figure that says something off or wrong, and point to that as their culture dying. And while some things seem like they're being blown out of proportion, I can see why people would have a problem with their nation losing a certain identity they were used to. And it's easy to hone in on race or religious differences as the cause of these problems, but just like a lot of the immigration policies, that is nothing but a band-aid. Without proper care and wound healing, it'll just get worse and become infected. This issue has been going on since the early 2010s. Many would say since World War II, but the 2010s was when we had a very big explosion in migration, especially in Europe, whereas America has always seen steady illegal immigrations, but had really seen a burst during the Joe Biden presidency. But in both situations, the people calling out the problem were ignored, and the government cited racism or hateful beliefs as a reason to not take these people's concerns seriously. With the wars going on and the ones looming around the corner, the rise in refugees doesn't really see an end. At the pace things are going, we are looking at some very dark times. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, the last time Europe faced this many problems, economically and socially, the world fell into World War I. Many people say we have passed the point of no return a while ago, and essentially people are just waiting for the match to be lit that will light the fuse of chaos. And history is saying that they might be right. For the first time in a while, Germany is remilitarizing. More and more countries we once thought were enemies are now having alliances that we've never seen before. And the rise of nationalism is back. Like I said, this problem is multifaceted. And as times get harder, politicians will grift even more. Many things that were once seen as taboos to say out of respect for thy neighbor are just things to stir the pot now. Nobody cares about anyone's feelings or respect, and the times of decency have flown out the window. You guys are probably tired of me saying it, but as an immigrant myself, the fact that I see the reason why this nationalist movement is gaining so much traction so fast is a bitter pill to swallow. I came to America and have benefited greatly from the fruits of the freedom that America gives. and it has changed the trajectory of my family tenfold. So the thought of not being able to give other families the same chance that I had seems hypocritical. And I feel like anything that I say would just be me seeing myself as quote unquote one of the good ones. But there is a problem. The governments for some reason are sabotaging their own citizens and systems in favor of multinational corporations that don't care how well the society they operate in does, but just try to profit off everything they can, realizing that max profits come from tough times and a distressed populace. I have chosen to reject the idea that my neighbor is at fault for problems that are bigger than us, but many people around me have not chosen to do the same thing. Instead, they have sided with people who have pushed hate rather than offer any type of solutions. Instead of coming together and thinking of plans that would benefit everybody and make the place that we live in manageable and sustainable for multiple groups, they would rather pin us against each other. While I agree immigration does put a strain on the system, but I also think billionaires who look for the cheapest workers to make the most profits on anything they make also put a huge strain on our system. People like to attribute all the bad things that happen with immigrants simply to their immigrant status. But as I've seen in America, these arguments, especially in the nationalist movement, don't just stop at immigration. They go into just race in general. When in reality, all the bad things that they attribute to certain races or people are factors of poverty. No matter how they spin it, even if they say the 13% or whatever else, when you look at economic status of people's race and class, the people at the bottom tend to do the most crime. This also goes for white people. Rich white people are less likely to do crime than poor white people. Same for blacks, same for Asians, same for everybody. But instead, numbers are cherry-picked to villainize an enemy and change the target really. If you find out that a lot of the issues that pertain to race are truly economic issues, then your mindset changes a lot, and it makes the grifting that's happening harder to ignore. But instead of creating a fair and equal economic playground for everybody to participate in, countries across the ocean have been plagued by politicians who have put in place certain rules or regulation that benefits the people in power at the time. Many people cite DEI or affirmative action as bad things. While I don't necessarily agree with the implementation of these plans, the reason they came about was because there was heavy discrimination on the other side. Instead of doing what we needed to fix it and make things more equal and whole, we've pushed more regulation that made people do something that they didn't want to. The thing about acceptance that I've learned in all my years on this earth, in the shoes that I've been placed in, humans hate being told what to do, especially without being given a good enough reason. People will lay down their lives for a cause if the reason is good enough. But instead of letting things happen organically, the government has been pushing through policies and disregarding anybody's opinions on them to leave people who have grown up in a country ostracized and left out of the decision-making process only leads to rebellion. And we don't need another civil war in any country. Times are bad enough already. The reason for a lot of this refugee and mass migration is because of wars. But so many people see dollar signs when they look at issues like this that they can't help but cash in. I'm not saying that's true for everybody in this movement, but when you look at the people pushing this message heavily and particularly in a very divisive way, most of them are contradictory to the things that they push. Nick Fuentes is a Hispanic white supremacist, and Donald Trump, someone who has criticized Mexico about sending their worst people, is just recently caught covering up and lying about a letter he wrote to Jeffrey Epstein. So again, a lot of the people on that side are just projecting, but the message they're projecting is resonating with a wider base of people. Because the idea that places are too crowded and don't have enough job, space, and opportunity for the people that are there is at an all-time high, and the gaslighting is done and it's not going to work anymore. People are tired of asking for problems to be fixed, are just going to do it themselves. Tensions will continue to get higher, and governments will do what they can to appease the populace, which usually means higher deportation rates, stricter travel regulations, and a worsening of alliances throughout the globe. When countries close themselves off and send away people who want to come in, history shows that good things usually don't happen. For the world to push back on global economics at this point is a little stupid. Our governments have amplified the effects of global trade on our economies, and have taken the systems off of gold-backed standards, leaving us in a very fragile space that requires global economics to sustain any type of progress or maintaining the status that we're at currently. And if we decide to close the door and leave that global economy, we are going to see very dark times. As I said, immigration is only expected to go up in the coming years. If we don't find a way to integrate all these people into societies that works for both sides, the people who were there already and the newly introduced people, then we are going to see riots, chaos, and social disarray at levels never seen before. I pray we find an answer. I don't know the answer myself. Making this video was kind of hard. I struggle with this topic a lot. I'm not in the camp of demonizing people who are looking for greater opportunities. If I was in their shoes, I would want somebody to help me out. But at the same time, I understand the importance of accepting a country's culture and not trying to change the way it is. When I came to America, I quickly understood why I left my country. Opportunity was at an all-time high here, and so was the sincerity of the people that lived here. This new lease on life when I came here in my childhood made me appreciate the life I had and instilled a sense of patriotism in me. I knew how lucky I was to step foot here, and even today, with everything I do, I carry that patriotism with me everywhere. For my European viewers, please don't hate your neighbor. I know things are pointing to that direction, but at the end of the day, no matter what side you support, just remember who's really pulling the strings here. Who determines if your paycheck goes up, if your rent stays the same, or if all the electricity is consumed by AI companies? It's not the gas station owner, it's not the DoorDash delivery driver, it's not the call center employee. It's that politician holding the solution behind a vote. If they wanted to fix the problem, they would have done that a long time ago. Instead, they found ways to profit off of it and drive social unrest to the max, and we're paying the consequences. This video was longer than I expected. It's almost 20 minutes long. That's kind of insane. But I hope I expressed myself well on this topic. I try to reiterate, I don't try to take the side of either party. I'm not a red or a blue. I am a person going through the times just like you. If you agreed or disagree with anything I said in this video, please let me know down below in the comments. What are your views on immigration, foreign worker crisis, and just everything going on in the world pertaining to that side? I really want to see what you guys think. If you haven't left a like on the video, please go ahead and drop a like. And a subscription does more for me than you could ever know. With that being said, thank you for tuning in. Until next time.
Transmission complete. Signal terminating. This is Ghostthread, signing off.